Welcome to the Discovering Leadership podcast. My name is Corbin Hannis from Enturian. I'm joined by my co-host Carl Bowden. As usual, Carl, you want to tell us what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so today we are talking about relationships. Now, this is a new series, and there's going to be 6 episodes in this series. First, we're going to talk about what are some of the foundations of establishing a healthy, functioning relationship. Now, before we go into this topic, the purpose of this podcast is to invest in you. It's to invest in the foundational principles of leadership. How do we lead effectively? How do we build relationships? How do we craft strategy in our business? How do we live to our true, authentic self while serving others? Our goal is to lead leaders. We want to multiply the effect in our communities by creating positive change that seeks to have a betterment of our communities. We want others to lead by example. So going into our topic, we're going to hit points such as trust, developing an open communication system. We're going to be talking about listening, and then also respect. So going into how to establish some of the foundational principles of building a healthy relationship, we're going to talk about trust. So, the foundation of any relationship must have trust. We need to be vulnerable in who we are. Now, Corbin, I wanted to ask you, how have you established trust within others, whether that be through vulnerability or, just sharing things about yourself to get them to draw closer to you and to, you know, trust everything that you do in your life?
Vulnerability is, I would say, somewhat of a key word there. Uh, to me, it's more so openness and honesty. I'm always going to be 100% honest with everybody about just things that I'm going through, my intentions behind whatever I'm doing, the why, and be completely open with people about all of that same information. It's to me, I if I'm authentic and living my true self, doing everything that I should be doing, then there's no reason for me to hide those kind of things and the reasons why I'm doing something and what I'm going through. There's no point in hiding that. And I always see it as like the golden rule:
Hmm.
treat others how you want to be treated. Whenever others are near me and I can tell they're hiding something that they're going through, or they're not being open, they're not being honest, whatever it might be, then I'm not going to trust them. I'm not
Hmm.
going to provide that trust. As we've talked about before, it's you got to put your foot forwards first. You got to put your best foot forwards. And the way I see it is I'm going to be open and honest with everybody about all the things that I'm going through, because if I don't, then word's going to get back around to whoever I'm not being open with, and I'm going to lose their trust.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of comes down to authenticity, like you had mentioned. And we have to initiate this trust. If we want others to trust us, we have to initiate it, whether that's through vulnerability or just sharing something that is very open and honest, not just something that is surface level, but going deeper into the relationship, asking those deep questions or just providing something to share that you wouldn't normally just speak out loud, but being really kind of intimate in that conversation, letting them in on your life. So that's huge. We have to give it first.
Most definitely. And it's like, as you were saying that, I'm thinking of it's like when it comes down to your relationships, that doesn't mean share everything with everybody.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
everybody needs to know everything. It's
Exactly.
like if you have a relationship with a significant other, a lot of that stuff should remain private. You're not going to go to work and start talking about all of the problems you have in your marriage with your coworkers, your boss, your employees, your
Hmm.
teammates, whoever it might be. Um, so there's context to things,
Hmm.
but any relevant information you should be open and honest about. It's like again goes back to your intentions. It's like, is it business related? Is this a client you're communicating with? Is it a teammate, or are you just friends with the individual?
Hmm.
Whatever that relationship is and the context of it is, share everything that's included. Be open with them. Like my clients, I make sure to share, okay, here's the development of our business. Here's
Hmm.
what we're going through. But I'm always very open about those things so they can see how they can fit into it and realize, okay, I if I'm thinking about developing a certain product or service, I'll tell my clients before I do that. That way I can say, "Hey, are you going to see any value in this?"
Mm.
I wanna be open about those things. "Hey, I'm pushing my time into something here. Here's why." And they can share whether or not they see value in that type of stuff. And it's also going to go the other way around. This last tax season, I personally struggled with time management. It wasn't the best thing overall. I actually, first week of April, perfect timing. I
Mhm.
got sick and I was bedridden for an entire week. Wasn't able to really get out of bed. I wasn't able to sleep, wasn't able to eat, just had a lot of problems going on. And like I said, that was first week of April. We're damn near a week away from the tax deadline. I had clients blowing up my phone. I was trying to take care of myself, take care of my teammates so that they could help out my clients, taking out care of my clients so that they could actually develop that relationship with us. It wasn't the easiest thing. It was very difficult to manage. But being open with my clients and telling them, "Hey, I'm sick. Here's what I'm going through. Here's what I need from you to be able to do everything that you need from me."
Yeah, that's huge. First we have to define what is the nature of the relationship.
Yeah.
We don't want to be completely vulnerable with everything and just share everything about our lives if it doesn't require that. So what is the nature of the relationship? Is it something that is more romantic? Is this business related? Is this more of a friendship? Is this a acquaintance? We have to understand who we are communicating with, and then clearly define that. Up front too. These are my intentions of the relationship, and then that's how we build that open communication system to really define what what we want out of this. Now, in communication, in desta- in establishing these relationships, we're going to face conflict. And this is where it gets hard. But when we face conflict, we have to understand other people's perspectives, and with that we have to have empathy. We have to put ourselves in their shoes, understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Why do they think the way they do? Now, when facing conflict, we have to know the timing of the conflict too,
Yep.
because there are times where if we're trying to face conflict and this person is just not in the right type of mood, or they're heavily angered, we don't probably want to have that conversation at that time. So when is the right time? Are we looking at that? It's key to looking at that. Just thinking on my life, past relationships, I remember, whether it be friendships or romantic relationships, if I kind of got in conflict and emotions started to raise, I'd realize that, man, should I be having this difficult conversation at this time, or should I just walk away, let the tempers kind of settle down, and then come back to it. Now we have to own up to it first. Like if there was something, that we might have done wrong, we have to own up to that. I was curious, Corbin, have you experienced anything like that, in terms of just kind of having to walk away or realize that this wasn't the best time to engage in conflict resolution?
Yeah, sometimes with clients, they'll have personal issues going on, and man, doing what I do, I always feel like I'm the bearer of bad news.
Mm,
I come into clients' offices and I'm like, "Hey, you're doing a great job this year. I know you just made X amount of dollars, but the IRS is going to take this amount from you." I'm like, and everybody looks at me like I'm the one taking it from them, and I'm like, "No, I really wish I was, but that's going to somebody else." But like I said, it makes me feel like I'm the bearer of bad news sometimes, but I always use some tact whenever I'm explaining these things. I'm not going to just send them an email. That's not information. To me, saying, "Hey, here's your tax bill for this year. We finished up your tax return. Here's how you're gonna pay it," and send them an email like that, or just shoot them a text.
mm,
That's that's not my method of going about it. I'd prefer to nurture the relationship a little
yeah.
bit more. Sit down with my clients and explain, okay, hey, here's your tax bill for last year, but let's understand why you had that bill and what can we potentially do about it going forwards. Can we make sure that you're going to continue hitting your goals, growing your business, growing your finances, growing your personal portfolio, whatever it might be, um, but making sure that all of that growth isn't swallowed up by taxes.
Yeah, that's huge. You know, Not only does timing have a big pivotal role in maintaining a healthy relationship, but the mode of communication too. You said sometimes you don't like to send an email or a text because it's not really that personal. You like to sit down with them, be face to face with them, and get on that personal, real, authentic, and trusting level. So, when we develop a open communication system, there's nothing more open and real than being in person. So that is
Oh,
that
yeah.
is crucial, and I'm glad you brought that up. But another factor when maintaining communication is frequency. You know, how often are we communicating what we want to get across? And after knowing what the relationship is, how much communication is going to be required to make it healthy. There's different types of relationships that might require more. So maybe something more romantic. If you're married, you probably want to be communicating with your wife or husband every single day.
Yeah.
But if it's a client relationship, maybe that's once a month.
Yeah, and some relationships, they might be the same type of relationship, but you have a different type of communication with the individual. Don't be objective about your communication styles. It's like, to me, within business, I'm I mean, we're always working on communication and getting better at it. We
Yeah.
wanna start emailing clients on a regular basis just so they have, like, updates with the firm and whatnot. But some clients don't like email. So, there's other clients, like, whenever I request a meeting with them, I make sure to text them. Some of them, I make sure to call them. Others, I'll just set the auto email on to send their way every month on the 1st of the month. They see that email come in and boom, they schedule it. Makes it easy. It makes my life easy. But others, I got to nurture it a little bit more. Being subjective about that type of or the type of communication and say how often it is, it's very important to make sure that I actually nurture the relationship. It also you can relate it to your personal life with your friends too. Some friends that I have, I can spend every day with them, and I can We can hang out after I get off work and go to dinner every freaking day. Some of them I could be roommates with and live with. Others, I have a lot of friends where if I spent every day with them, I'm gonna wanna strangle them by the end of the first week. I'm like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
But, that's friendships. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not every friendship is equal, not every person is equal. You gotta find the balance, and like I said, treat it more on a subjective basis than an objective basis. Figure out what works for the other person.
Mm, that's key. What works for the other person, you know, in communication and in leadership, it's not really about us. It's always about serving that other person. What are they wanting from the relationship? And how do we communicate based off of their needs? How do we lead to others' needs? Another important point is that we need to really develop an open and safe space for communication.
Yep.
And you had mentioned earlier, we're not all perfect at communicating. No one is perfect at communicating. But the thing is, as long as we're continually learning and getting better and focusing on others, that's how we can get better.
Yep.
A key part of communication too is listening. It's not always what we're speaking, but what we're hearing.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a analogy in, I think it's the Bible, where it says there's a reason why we have two ears and one mouth.
Man, you stole that right out. Ah,
Yeah.
I was hoping to say that, but you beat me to it.
It's so key though, I mean, we have to we have to listen extra hard or double the amount
Yeah.
that we speak.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually a verse in the Bible that says, "Be quick to listen and slow to speak." I think it's in the book of James, but it really focuses on developing uh, kind of like I kind of think of it as like a monk type mentality.
Yeah.
When we're just like listening, because we can't if we're not listening, we're not learning. We can't take in wisdom, but when we're listening, we're bringing in new knowledge and into our environment. That's the hard part though, and I think a lot of people struggle with this because they feel like they they matter, and by speaking, they want others to value who they are and the knowledge that they have. But in order to become wise and to learn, we have to listen.
Most definitely. And a lot of people, I think this is somewhat human nature too, but a lot of people don't listen with the intent to learn and the intent to understand. Most people are listening with the intent to reply. It's
Mm,
like I said, I think it's human nature. Often I mean, just sitting here in this podcast, I'm listening to what you're saying, but I'm also mindful about the fact that you're not the only one sitting here. This is more of a conversation basis,
yeah.
and we're tending to an audience. I've got to put out my mind a little bit here too.
Hmm.
Nonetheless, especially whenever we have uh, guests on the podcast, I don't even wanna talk. It's like, I'm
Oh
sitting
yeah.
here, the guests are
It's not about us.
yeah,
It's
they're on the podcast for a reason. I wanna listen to everything they have to say so I can absorb all this information
hmm
because 'cause I'm learning to be a leader going through this. I think that the Discovering Leadership podcast name is very fitting for that. It's
hmm
like, make sure that as you learn about these topics, everything that we're talking about, you're taking it in and you think about, "Okay, how can I apply it? What can I do to take all of this information and improve my life?" That's again the goal that we have with the podcast,
hmm
and it all comes back to what we're talking about today. Uh, Listen with the intent to understand, as opposed to the intent to reply. The inverse is more human nature, but you've got to be a little bit intentional about that.
Hmm.
Make sure that you're absorbing as much information as possible.
Exactly. So, when you say listen with the intent to understand, that's really others focused. We have to understand who we're communicating with. But when we listen with the intent to reply, replying is focused on us and what we have to say. What we really want to focus on is the understanding. We have to focus on other people. We have to be unselfish in our listening. So when we listen, we have to listen to learn. Listening brings that new knowledge from others and then gives us the opportunity to bring in wisdom into our lives. So the last point we want to cover here with defining some of the fundamentals of a relationship, the foundational principles of a healthy relationship is respect. So when we have respect for others, we identify some of these similarities and some of the differences between maybe some of our viewpoints. Now, it's very easy to really bond or vibe with someone that has the same types of viewpoints as us. Now, the difficulty is when we have these differences. Are we respecting these differences? Are we are we respecting different people's perspectives in their belief system, the way they were raised, the different types of culture that they've been brought up in? So we have to really take a moment and try to understand that through empathy and putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, understanding their thought process with things.
It reminds me of one of the meetings that we've had through our coaching relationship and me figuring out a lot more about what I value in relationships that I have. Uh, to me, respect is very important. I have to be able to respect every single person that I consider a friend. That's one of the three values that are non-negotiable for me. But what it really comes down to is, like, if I want to receive respect from somebody, and the topic today is if I'm going to receive that respect, I have to give them respect as well. Finding
Mhm.
common ground is a great way to start to determine why you should respect somebody. Respecting their differences is very important. You have to treat them with politeness. You have to be able to understand those differences, understand why they're different,
Mhm.
and understand that those differences between you and them are what makes the common ground special. And
Yeah, that's huge.
yeah,
When we can come together with differences, but then still have one common purpose, wow,
yeah,
that's powerful. That's what builds a really strong, united relationship.
exactly.
We can come together through this diversity, these different ways of thinking, and still keep the ball moving, whether that's in business or the relationship or just growing deeper together.
Oh, yeah, and appreciate those differences that you have with the other person because, like I said, that's what makes the common grounds you have, the 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 likenesses much more special. It's the yin and yang, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, to me, I have to be able, again, to respect somebody, to consider them a friend. If if I can't see any common ground between me and them, if if I see the differences between me and them, and those aren't things that I can appreciate, then to me, I don't have much respect for that person. Now that's not gonna be, happening all the time, at least I hope. I'm not gonna walk around to everybody and just say, "I don't respect you, I don't respect you." for whatever reason just because I don't have common ground with them.
Well, yeah.
But um, that comes back to, as we've mentioned before, put your best foot forwards and do that first before the other person does, and treat other people the way you wanna be treated. Provide them with the respect, and then be polite and make sure that you earn the respect from them.
Yeah. I think it goes back to knowing when to listen and when to speak, because we might have all these viewpoints inside of us, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to speak our opinion about everything and what we believe about a certain topic or a certain person. We can just listen to understand why, what is making this person act in this particular way. A few ways that I've found to give respect is to give thanks as well.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm thankful for something, or I tell someone, "Hey, I appreciate you,"
Yeah.
or "I'm thankful for you," that's that right there just defines being respectful, is giving thanks, showing that that person matters, or this experience that we have gotten to share matters. Another thing is being punctual. When we're showing up to like a business meeting, for instance,
Yeah.
if we show up on time, we're respecting that other person. And it's been said that time is one of our most valuable assets that we have in life.
Oh, yeah.
So when we respect other people's time, that shows an enormous amount of respect. So, it goes back to really having integrity as well. Are we doing what we're saying we're going to do? Are our actions aligning with our words? And is it consistent? That's key.
Yeah.
We have to consistently develop these habits of respect, of developing trust and listening effectively, and developing an open and safe communication system to really grow deeper in this relationship.
Yeah.
So these are some of the foundations, establishing trust, open communication, listening, and then having respect
Yeah.
for others.
I mean, for all of our audience members out there, think critically about the relationships that you have. Think about the relationships that are most important to you. What relationships that um, are the deepest, whether it's with a family member, your significant other, somebody, say your more prominent business relationships, or your best friends. How many of them do you not trust? Do you not have an open line of communication with? Do you not listen and they listen to you, and you don't respect each other? If there's any relationships like that, then how deep is the relationship? You gotta ask yourself these difficult questions and think about, it's like, what relationships do you have where, say, you might just be missing one of these? You might be ineffectively communicating with, say, your mother or father, son or daughter, brother or sister, whoever it might be, a client, a specific client, um, or your best friend, where there's not necessarily an open line of communication, but both of you trust and love each other. Both of you listen to each other and understand each other, have empathy for each other, and you both respect each other. But there's there's some tension in the relationship. Could be a that lack of an open line of communication. It could be the fact that, say, one person's going through something and they're not effectively listening to the other and providing empathy. Uh,
Mhm.
there could be a lack of respect as a result of somebody's decision making through a certain situation they were going through. There could be a lack of trust for the same reason.
Mhm.
Think critically about those important relationships that you have, and think about how you can apply some of these topics to make sure, okay, well, say my relationship with, for example, my relationship with, say, one of my more important clients isn't going all the best. And the reason why I know that is because of our last meeting. It didn't, um, the whole vibe was off. I could tell there's something going on, and I I trust them to say, share everything and be open with me. I respect what they've done because they're a prominent business individual and I work with them, and I try to listen, but they could feel there's not an open line of communication and they're going through something, but they don't want to share it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's causing a little bit of tension in the relationship. So making sure that they trust me enough to provide that open line of communication, or make sure they trust me to, or they have the respect for me to provide that information, uh, and they know that I'll listen. These things are all very important to be able to build these deeper, more meaningful relationships with people in your life.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Corbin, because we need to look at our current relationships. What are they saying about us and where we want to go? We have to really define the current state of our relationships.
Yeah,
So, that's a challenge to our podcast audience, What is your current state in all of your relationships? Is it worth continuing? There's a book by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's called Necessary Endings. And sometimes, if we have developed these bad, unhealthy relationships, there may be a necessary ending to that relationship. And then
yeah,
another thing to ask is, what type of relationship do you want? Whether that be business, personal, romantic, whatever that may be. Write that out. Write it out. Understand it. Envelop it.
and then provide that open line of communication to make sure that the other person also understands it. You communicate that with them, make sure they respect it, and you can trust them to respect that.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you have to ask yourself, if you don't have trust, communication, and listening and understanding and respect, then what kind of relationship do you have?
Yeah. So I ask you guys today, start finding these things out. Where are your current relationships? Where do you want them to go? Who do you want your relationships to be with? So, this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity to start taking action and develop the relationships that you have always wanted. So, Corbin, that that concludes our episode on establishing the relationship. But our next episode, we're going to be talking about how do you manage and care for these relationships after you know what you want. Where are you going to take that, and how are you going to really make it a healthy relationship that lasts, that continues. So, for our podcast listeners, you guys can check out new episodes every other Tuesday, either on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts.
Also, make sure you go to Enturian.com. That's Enturian.com. Check out exemplifyleadership.com as well. If you go to our social media, we'll be posting updates for the podcast on every different social media channel. You can also make sure, if you want to see the video format of this podcast, we record it on video and post it on the Enturian YouTube channel. That'll wrap it up. Remember, everybody, that alone we survive, but together we thrive. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a good one.